Hi guys, my name is Kat and we're going to be making this piece today. It's a little bit like Bob Ross, but space. I'm a deep space artist and I've been making these kind of things for 7 years. And I'm going to show you the easiest method to create the most beautiful nebulae. This is an oil painting technique called Alo Prima, or in the moment. You use a wet canvas. Let me explain. The black is entirely dry and it's made from gesso, and on top of that, once it's dry, you add a thin layer of linseed oil and alizarin crimson. And once you have that on, you can load a fan brush with titanium white. And the key to beautiful strokes is irregularity. You don't want anything that's too repetitive or too obvious. Sometimes just making a mess is a bit of fun. I'm using an incredibly soft dagger brush, normally used for watercolor, but in this case, to create gentle wisps. We want to create softness and glows, and it gives it that relaxing feel. When you make these nebulae, it's all about flow, viscosity, gently dragging the material until it fades. And moreover, the formation of these real nebulae out in space is a fascinating process rooted in the fundamental laws of astrophysics. In the vast, silent expanse of outer space, amidst the cosmic dance of stars and galaxies, the intricate shapes of these nebulae are sculpted by stellar winds and shockwaves from supernovae, which push the gas and dust into these complex structures. This interstellar choreography results in breathtaking visual phenomenon we observe. This is not the final form. In the ethereal aftermath of a nebula's formation, a celestial ballet begins, orchestrated by the unseen maestro, gravity. And as the nebulae settles into a tranquil rhythm, gravity gently tugs at the scattered dust and gas, weaving them into delicate threads that stretch across the void, like cosmic silks. And as the artist, we get to represent the universe, expressing things like gravity. And that's why, when we paint in this method, it seems somewhat chaotic, but it's evolving, just like the production of a real nebulae. When we get to this stage, I'm often looking for whether I need more darkness, more light, more detail, more softness. I'll look at each section and see if I need to add things. And it's an experimental process. I've added white to the dagger brush in order to create these thin strands. At this point, the canvas is getting a little wet, and it's quite hard to produce those really lovely blends. So I've decided I'm going to do a second layer, which I've never shown people before. Soon I'll be setting this aside to cure for 2 weeks, and once it is dry to touch, I'll come back and add another layer. But before then, I want to make it a little brighter. And this is because the colour we're going to add is transparent, and when placed over a white background, it becomes ultra vibrant. Palette knives are my favourite way of adding large blocks of light and blending out with a soft brush create the perfect backdrop. Once dried for 2 weeks, we enter the next stage, glazing. We glaze with transparent colours, in this case magenta and alizarin crimson. And when you apply it over a light background, it creates a vibrant, intense color, almost like a stained glass window. The light penetrates through the color layer, reflects off the white background, and reflects back through. Now we're going to be going back and adding more details. The backdrop is already wet and red, and that is placed over the top of the previous painting that is solid and dry. So the bits behind it are immovable, while the red and the new fresh white will move. This allows you to add complex layers and structures. When you glaze, you lose some of the details. So I'm adding in lots of little sections. It looks a little chaotic, but these clumps and ripples, once blended, will create lots of nice texture that will make the nebula feel a lot more real. The final stage is adding subtle details. Using small brushes and dark colors, in our case, alizarin crimson and magenta, we're going to be adding in subtle shadows that will highlight and enhance the ripples within the nebula. And much like a mountain range, that when you look out into the distance, it's fogged and delicate, and when it comes closer to the viewer, it is dark and strong and defined. By doing this, we create the illusion of depth. And unlike the earlier stages that were a little more random and chaotic, this is the one place you want to be careful and measured. It's best completed as a slowly evolving stage, adding small amounts of dark and delicately blending them out, and using increasingly smaller brushes to add increasingly smaller details. And in many ways, I feel like this stage, above all others, is the most magic, because it takes something from a random blob into something that feels structured and impressive. This whole process, it takes a lot of critical thinking to decide where these ripples will go. But the truth is that if it doesn't quite work out, you can always blend them out and start again. Each section, I'm carefully considering whether it needs detail or not. Sometimes we can fall into the trap of adding too much detail. The overarching image becomes overwhelming and too much. So it's important to leave areas that are still soft and still delicate. And once we've finished with the dark, we can go back in and add in additional highlights, continuing the work we're doing with the shadows, but now in the light. These again with quite small detail brushes, and again in a more measured way. Here I'm gently tapping to create blends. And once all of the details and highlights have been added and blended, we go on to adding stars. Today we have painted an emission nebulae. These vast clouds of gas and dust are lit up from within by the fierce radiation of hot young stars, just as we are painting here. Their radiant colours, reds and sometimes greens, primarily from hydrogen and oxygen, create a celestial tapestry that speaks of the universe's dynamic, ever-evolving nature. Each nebulae, with its unique form and composition, tells a story of stellar birth and destruction, a testament to the cyclical nature of the cosmos. After using a splatter brush and blending some of the stars out, I'm going back to add in those final details. It's always good to go back and re-edit the image, see where things feel they need brightening or darkening. And once we've finished adding these final last details, we will blend them out. Because as everyone knows, subtlety is the key to creating beautiful details. The final stage is working out if it feels right from all directions. I'll turn the canvas and see if anything feels like it's missing. Sometimes having a canvas face in a particular way will make you paint heavily to one side and will leave other sides feeling a little bit too sparse. To weight things correctly, it really helps to be able to turn things upside down. And that way, you can have an image that feels more natural. Because honestly, when you're talking about space, what way is really up? Now it's time to come to the end. I like to sign diagonally so people can choose which way they display it. It's quite hard to sum up in words how I feel, but I just want to say how grateful I am that you're even here watching this. And until next time, may the wind always be at your back. May your skies always be filled with stars. And I hope you find joy in all the small things. And please, at night, make sure you go outside and look up.